project to you, I would first like to show you. Just before my grade 11 year of high school, my guitar at home had been gathering dust for a couple of years. I used to play a lot, but for a few years I went through a bit of a dry spell. In my first year of Propel, while I was working on my project, I had rediscovered my love for the guitar. There were many musically talented people in the class, and that inspired me to play more and more. And there were always guitars around the classroom that I would play in my spare time. It was a really great point in my high school career, and I continued to play guitar well after the semester had ended. Fast forward to the end of grade 11, and I had been informed that I was invited back for a second semester of Propel in grade 12. After happily accepting, I began researching different project ideas. I knew I wanted to work on something hands-on, but I wanted to try working with a material that was new to me. And that's when I started looking into woodworking projects. At first, I was looking into working on many smaller projects such as chessboards or other intricate pieces. Then I started thinking back to my first semester of Propel, and I came up with the idea of building my own acoustic guitar. It would be the perfect combination of music and woodworking, and would be a nice homage to where I started in Propel. I began researching how guitars were made, and I found that the neck and headstock would be easy to make, but the body required some very complicated and precise carving that I was not yet prepared for. I wanted a challenge, but even this was out of my reach, especially for a first-time woodworker. That is when I discovered Cigar Box guitars. It included all of the work that went into real acoustic guitars without the complicated design on the body. It was perfect, and I knew I had found the project for me. And for the grade 12 students, we were really pushed to have our projects include a community connection, but I had no idea what I was going to do yet. My project included the mass production of 3-string electric Cigar Box guitars. And this is the first and second one that I made. This is where my project began. It's a little bit funny looking back now, but when the semester began, I had planned on only making around 1 to 3 of these at the max. I had no idea how quickly I would develop my skills to be able to complete as many guitars as I did in the end. By the end of the semester, 2 cigar box guitars had turned into 24. Cigar box guitars were first made as early as the 1800s, but were really popular around the 1930s during the Great Depression. People who couldn't afford their own instruments would make these guitars out of a cigar box, a broomstick, and some wire from screen doors. These guitars were a big part of blues music and would most often be played with the neck of a bottle used as a slide. The history of these guitars was very interesting to me and was a big reason why I was initially drawn to the project, because I love old classic blues music. My guitars were made a little different than they were back then, but I still wanted that same rugged type of feel to come across. The cigar boxes that I use come from a tobacconist called Thomas Hines Tobacconist, and what's cool about them is that none of the money spent on cigar boxes goes to them. Thomas Hines Tobacconist donates all cigar box sale money straight to Winnipeg Harvest. This is how the mass production started. Just a bunch of wood and cigar boxes. The neck and headstocks are all made from scratch. It starts as a piece of poplar and then an area for the cigar box is cut out. And the cut you see in the top left picture is on the inside of the cigar box on this part of the guitar. The lid sits on these 2 steps, and you will notice there's a step lower than those 2. This is very important because it gives the lid room to resonate, which makes the guitar louder. And you can see the space between the lid and the neck in this picture. After that, the neck is glued into the box, and once that is done, the bridge and the nut are placed, the tuning pegs go in, and the guitar is strung up. Each guitar is also electric and can be plugged into any standard guitar amp. Each guitar has a jack on the bottom of it there, and that's what it looks like on the inside on the right picture. And this little circle you see on the end of the wires is called a disc piezo, and it gets glued onto the inside of the lid, and it takes the frequencies and vibrations from the strings and transfers the signal to the amp, which is what makes it electric. For my mass production, I was working in assembly line type fashion by doing the same step over and over on each guitar, rather than building one guitar after another. This was much more efficient because each step only needed to be set up once. I also created a few different jigs and templates to save myself from measuring things over and over. The little block you see on the top was used to mark where I needed to cut the slots in the cigar boxes. The middle piece was used as a template to drill the holes in the tailpiece for the strings. And I used the block on the bottom to drill the holes in the headstock for the tuning pegs. And the picture on the right is a little trick I used when I was drilling the holes for the mounting screws for the tuning pegs. I needed to make sure I didn't drill too far into the neck and come out on the other side. So I put a little piece of tape at the exact length of the screw to ensure that didn't happen. Now, having all these guitars was great, but I still hadn't figured out my community piece. I decided I was making all of these guitars no matter what. So that gave me time to come up with a community piece while I was building. I thought of selling the guitars and donating the money to Winnipeg Harvest, and while that was nice, it wasn't a personal enough connection with someone. I thought of busking at the Forks and putting the money towards a school music program, but again, it wasn't personal enough. After collaborating with parents and teachers and peers, we finally came to an idea. I could step into a music class and teach students about the history of these guitars as well as how to play them. And at the end of the lesson, I would give away each guitar to the students. So that's what I set out to do. It took weeks and weeks of emailing and planning with the music director of LRSD named Mr. Bell to organize the 30-minute session I wanted to hold. He was a key component to my community piece being possible. And eventually I was set up for a grade 4 or 5 class in Marion School. And here are a few of my favorite pictures from that day taken by Cassie. This was one of the most heartwarming experiences of my life, to see kids so excited and interested in something that I had created. I showed them basic playing styles, taught them a few riffs, and taught them about where the guitars came from. At the end, some of the students even came up and played their solos plugged into the amp. I originally planned to give all of my guitars away to the students to take home, but the teacher said she liked them so much she wanted to continue working with them in her class for the next week, and then the kids would get them. So it was a great feeling to know that the teacher liked the guitars just as much as the students did. The whole experience was amazing, and was the perfect way to cap off my project. My inspiration to pursue this project was partially because I wanted to work with a material that I didn't know that well. I wanted to go into engineering after high school, so having many hands-on experiences with different materials is very beneficial to me. I also wanted to give back to the community in some way while still working on something that I had fun doing. I strongly believe in finding something you love to do and figuring out how it can benefit other people, and and I really feel like I succeeded in doing that this year. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, I thought it would be a nice way to end off my final year of Propel by tying the 2 semesters together with a guitar project. There are many aspects of my project that I'm very happy with, one of which being the organization of my community piece. It took a lot of time and planning to be able to work in another school as a grade 12 student who didn't have any past experience in doing something like this. And again, I have to give a lot of credit to Mr. Bell for putting in so much of his own time and effort to making my project goal possible. I took the initiative in reaching out to different teachers while trying to find a school to work in, instead of letting the Propel teachers make all of the arrangements for me. Almost all of the communication was directly between me and the other organizers. Another piece of my project that went very well was the process of learning a new instrument. It wasn't completely new to me as I play guitar already, but it was much more different than I thought it would be. Going from a 6-string guitar to a 3-string felt very weird, and the physical size of the guitar was tough to get used to. I also had to get used to playing in only open tunings, and I learned how to play with a slide, which is the metal piece that you saw me using earlier. Cigar box guitars are almost exclusively played with a slide, so the guitars have a much higher action. And action is how far the strings are off of the fretboard. So having high action means the strings are further away from the neck of the guitar, which makes it harder to press down. And that was just one more thing to add to the list of differences from a regular guitar. But in the end, I was able to learn a handful of riffs that I can now play confidently. And overall, my project was a massive success. While most of my project went as planned, there were still a few bumps in the road. When I was deciding how many guitars I was going to make during my mass production, I was thinking there were only going to be 2 music classes, or there were going to be 2 music classes. There was no way I was going to be able to make around 40 guitars, so I decided to make 20. And I would raffle them off to the kids who were interested. But only a week before the big lesson day, I was informed that there would only be 1 music class with 22 students. So, guitars number 21 and 22 were born. I quickly went out and bought the parts for 2 more guitars, and in just the weekend I had them caught up with the other 20. To put that into perspective, my first guitar probably took me around 2 weeks to completely finish. I was able to make them so quickly because of all the templates I had made during the mass production, and also I had done each step 20 times before. So I didn't need to waste my time figuring how I was going to do the work, it was just a matter of doing it. Another challenge I faced was a little more out of my control. It was very difficult finding time in the work in the shop at school. A few of the steps on the guitars required me to do some work with power tools, and using these tools meant I needed a certified teacher supervising me. This was never easy, as the Woods teachers were busy almost all of the time, and it was hard for the Propel teachers as well because they had 21 other students to look out for. At best, I would only have about an hour in the afternoon to work in the shop, but if I were to have bigger chunks of time to work, my guitars would have been done much quicker. But I overcame this problem by staying late some days after school when Mr. P could supervise me. But luckily, most of the work did involve power tools, so a lot of the work could be done at home. Even with the few struggles I had, I did everything I could, and there's very little that I would change about how I worked on my project, if anything at all. There were just a few logistical challenges that I couldn't do too much about. Overall, my end result in my project improved so much from last year. I'm very proud of what I accomplished, especially with all this woodworking being new to me. This year's project was very self-driven, and this really felt like my project. I worked as independently as possible this year, and the project turned out better than I could have imagined. While the project portion of the semester was important, there's still a whole other side to Propel, and that is all the skills we picked up along the way. One of those skills I really worked on this year was incorporating feedback from others. Throughout the semester, I've relied heavily on receiving feedback and finding information from all different types of sources. At the start of the semester, before I even had the parts for my guitars, I went out and talked with a couple guys at a farmer's market that make and sell these guitars. I asked them a few questions about making them and told them what I was doing for a school project. They answered questions I didn't even know I had, and provided me with the best starting point I could have asked for in the project. Throughout the semester, I was constantly receiving feedback from peers, family, and teachers at every step of the way to see what people liked and what people didn't. I made sure to talk with both people who play guitar and people who did not. And this was really important during the building of my first 2 guitars because my next 22 would be based off of those first ones, so I wanted them to be perfect. I probably improved my communication skills more than anything else this year. I improved on this skill in a variety of different ways, but emailing was definitely my most used method this semester. As I mentioned earlier, my entire community piece was organized by way of email. My first email to Mr. Bell probably took me around 45 minutes to craft because I was so worried of having a spelling mistake or making sure the wording was absolutely perfect. It was a really big deal. But by the end of the semester, I was much more confident in my writing abilities and was able to get my message across in an efficient and organized manner. And this is just a screenshot of some of the emails. I was emailing with 3 different teachers at one point in my project. As well as written pieces, I also had practice with presentations with our current event Wednesday, classroom building, and this presentation right now. And communication was a key part to the success of my project this year. Aside from my own project, I really tried my best to help other classmates in their projects. I made sure to connect with every single person and help out where I could. In the start of the semester, I was helping the grade 11s get used to their new school environment. And near the end of the semester, more often than not, I was finding people were approaching me for my opinion and feedback. So that was very nice to know that what I had to say was valued by others. Also, I really wanted to make an impact with my project this year. Last year, my project was more for me than anyone else, and that's why I decided to have my project have more of a meaning to other people this time around. Looking forward into the future, I definitely plan to continue making these cigar box guitars. Many of my classmates have even approached me to buy them off of me. Personally, I just love making them, and eventually I want to start making some really complex pieces. Besides my project, I think the skills I learned and improved on this semester will carry on far past my high school life. I plan to move into university next year, which means I'm just one more step closer to being out in the real world and doing things more independently. These past 2 years have taught me more than I ever thought I could learn out of one school program. I'm a much better problem solver and critical thinker, which are both very important traits for an engineer to possess. I wouldn't have been able to be so successful without the support of my teachers and the relationships I have made over these 2 years. I've had the chance to work on a couple really neat projects, and I've had experiences that I never thought I would. I never saw myself taking over a music class in a teaching situation. Propel has opened my eyes to so many different possibilities for the future, and has really taught me to be open-minded in every situation. I've made so many great connections with teachers and fellow classmates, and Propel has taught me a variety of new skills, as well as provided me with opportunities to further develop old skills. And I'll use the things I learned here for the rest of my life.